Welcome everybody to another episode of Coffee,
Sweaters,
and Finance.
It's getting better.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So you have a question for me.
I've got a question for you.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna do another list today. So the list I was thinking of is the 5 biggest mistakes people make with their employer stock.
5 biggest mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start out right away with taxes. People, if they don't understand and put in the work to understand what the tax consequences are.
Right.
So you got to know when it's going to be taxed so that you can plan for it. A big thing is with company stock, a lot of times there's opportunities to reduce your taxes if you're just put in the work to plan ahead of time. If you understand when there's going to be an income spike, you can accelerate your deductions to that year.
Yeah.
So
remember one thing: the IRS does not care if you didn't have a plan.
Nope, they don't.
Right? They didn't care. They don't care if you didn't have the information you need. That is not important to them. What's important to them is that you pay the taxes that you owe.
Yep, absolutely.
So you have to have a strategy for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So number 2, this might be a sub bullet to number 1, but not setting aside money then to pay estimated payments for whenever restricted stock vests or stock options are exercised.
Yeah.
You get the money, and they'll withhold, but usually you're going to owe an additional amount.
Sure.
You get the money, and then you think, oh, great, I have X thousand dollars. You go spend it on your house, or you invest it or something like that.
Right.
And then April comes around, and it's like, hey, you owe IRS X thousand dollars.
Government gives you the bill.
Yep.
It's a little more than you were thinking.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want that scenario to play out.
Absolutely.
I'm going to throw out number 3, if that's all right.
Let's hear it.
And that is not having a diversification plan.
Yeah.
So often people get stock comp, and maybe the stock's done pretty well, and they have never had or don't have a plan for solidifying their net worth and diversifying their net worth. And that's where you can kind of get into a scenario like what happened to General Electric. Or we've seen it with other companies, that the stock is at X, maybe it's been growing for 5 years, and then it tanks. It goes down 50, 60, 70, 80% plus. And you wish you had diversified.
We've talked about this before about how difficult it is emotionally to manage a concentrated position. The way to avoid that is to have a plan beforehand for how you're going to diversify.
Absolutely.
And if you don't do that, people make mistakes, almost across the board, because it's so hard to manage without a predetermined plan.
Yeah. Corollarily, what would you point out as like a good number where a healthy number to have in your employer-based stock?
I like 10%.
You like 10%?
Yeah. Sometimes you can't avoid having more than that. Maybe it's it's unvested. So you just naturally have a large position.
And sometimes for corporate execs, the company mandates that you might have to have a certain, not necessarily of your net worth, but a certain percentage or a certain amount in company stock. Obviously, that's not something you can plan around. You just have to own it.
Yeah, so sometimes you're going to have more because of holding requirements.
Sure.
Sometimes there's expectations that are set in terms of how much you hold. Sometimes it's unvested. And stock options are a little unique. Sometimes it makes sense to hold those longer. But yeah, I like 10% in general if you can try to get it down to there.
And for me, the rule of thumb I always thought of is 5 to 10%. So it's somewhere in that number. Anytime you start getting over 10, that becomes a disproportionate amount of your net worth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what would be number 4?
All right, stock options. See people exercise them too early. So stock options.
So what happens then?
Stock options are a little unique from other types of employer stock because of their structure. They're leveraged, which means the structure inherently is leveraged, which means that if the stock price goes up, the option is going to go up by more. If there's more risk, you can lose the value faster as well. But that's leverage that you can use to your benefit.
Yes.
And the key there is making sure that you generally want to hold them longer because it allows you to maximize the benefit of that leverage than traditional employer stock.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I think people see in the money value in their stock options, and they, whether it's
they want to pull that trigger.
They want to pull the trigger. They want the cash.
Absolutely.
And if you have, it depends on, everyone's going to be different. So it depends on what type of equity you have. But if there's ways that you can diversify while ideally holding your stock options for the optimal amount of time.
Sure. Sure.
And there's always a balance there.
Yeah. And this just kind of comes back to having a plan. You must have a plan.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out number 5 if that's okay.
Let's see it.
And that is ignoring the rest of your financial life.
Yes.
I think so often when a certain asset, even if it's just your house or a business that you own, or obviously in this case, company stock, takes on a disproportionate amount of your net worth or your financial life, it's common to kind of forget about everything else, right? And so often in our clients with who own company stock, we see them kind of forgetting about their cash flow. Or forgetting about their taxes, or forgetting to put money in the 529s, or even maximize their 401k. Is that where you're going right there? Yeah, we see that all the time where they're so focused on the ISOs, the RSUs, or something like that.
Or they're not even employer stock purchase plans. They're so focused on all these things. And they're missing basic fundamental planning opportunities that are right there in front of them because they're so obsessed about trying to hold their stock to the right moment in time,
right?
Or whatnot.
And no shame here.
Yeah.
It's just the way that we think. We kind of tend to our brains are attracted to what's biggest in that sense, and but that's something we see over and over. So forgetting about the rest of your financial life, obviously we want to give attention there too, because that matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else, Bill? I don't have a bonus question today.
That's it.
I don't do bonus questions. I don't really like them. You can do them.
Yeah. I don't have any right now.
Okay.
But those are all big things, and I think we'll probably circle back on them again at some point.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, y'all.